Okay, let's talk about the literature review. If you've ever felt that sinking feeling of overwhelm just thinking about it, trust me, you are not alone. It can feel like you've been dropped in the middle of a massive, dense forest and told, okay, now go map every single tree. It seems chaotic, right? Almost impossible. But what if I told you there's a compass and a clear path to follow? Today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're turning that chaos into clarity by breaking this whole thing down into a simple step-by-step process.
So what is a literature review really? It's a term that gets thrown around all the time in academic circles, but what does it actually mean? Let's be clear, it is so much more than a glorified book report. A really good literature review is part detective work, part sharp critique, and part compelling storytelling, all rolled into one powerful package.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the foundation, just to make sure we're all on the same page about what a literature review actually is. Then we'll open up the toolkit and look at the different types of reviews you can do. After that, we'll get to the real heart of it, the blueprint, a 6-step process you can follow. From there, we'll talk about the construction, how to actually write the paper. And finally, we'll do a quick inspection of the most common mistakes so you know exactly what to avoid.
All right, first things first. You can't build a house on shaky ground, right? You need a solid foundation. Well, the same thing goes for your research. Getting this part right, really understanding what a lit review is supposed to accomplish, is what stops your whole project from feeling wobbly and unfocused later on.
Now, the two words to really zero in on here are critical and analytical. This is not a passive activity where you just collect and list what other people have said. No way. You are actively evaluating it. You're connecting the dots between different ideas and, this is the most important part, you're figuring out what's missing from the conversation. You're an investigator.
And this slide right here nails the biggest misconception out there. A literature review is not a laundry list. It's not Smith said this and then Jones said that. Instead, it is a synthesis. Think of it like you're piecing together a giant puzzle. You're trying to build a compelling argument that creates a clear picture of what the entire field knows and, just as importantly, what it doesn't know yet.
Okay, let's move on to our toolkit. You wouldn't use a screwdriver to hammer a nail, right? Well, not all research jobs are the same, and neither are literature reviews. Choosing the right type of review for your specific goal is one of the most important decisions you'll make at the start.
So this table breaks down your main options. A narrative review is your flexible, all-purpose tool. It's great for exploring broad topics. But if you have a very specific question, like in medicine, a systematic review with its super strict rules is what you need. A scoping review is perfect for when you want to map out an entire field to see what's out there. And a meta-analysis, well, that's a statistical powerhouse that lets you combine the actual numbers from a bunch of different studies into one.
All right, now for the blueprint. This is the core of our explainer today. This is the step-by-step guide that's going to take your literature review from this big, abstract idea into a concrete, totally doable plan. These 6 steps are your roadmap, from start to finish. You define your question, you develop a search strategy, you screen your sources, you appraise their quality, you organize all the data, and finally, you synthesize it into a coherent story. If you follow this order, you will stay focused and your final review will be rock solid. Seriously, everything starts right here. Everything. If your research question is vague, your search is going to be all over the place and your final paper will be a mess. But a sharp, clear, well-defined question, that's your compass. It guides every single decision you make from here on out, what you search for, what data you pull out, and how you tell the final story.
Once your compass is set, it's time to map the terrain, and this means going way beyond a simple Google search. You're going to use multiple academic databases. Think PubMed, Scopus, JSTOR, and you're going to get super precise with something called Boolean operators. It sounds complicated, but it's not. For example, searching for leadership and performance gets you only articles that have both words. But searching employee or worker expands your search to include either term. It's a game changer for finding exactly what you need.
Okay, so you've run your search and now you've got this mountain of potential sources. How on earth do you find the real gems in there? Well, that's step 3, screening. And this Prisma flowchart is the perfect tool for the job. It helps you document your process so it's totally transparent. You start up top with maybe thousands of articles, then you systematically screen them, and by the end you've funneled it all down to just a handful of studies that perfectly match what you're looking for.
So you've got your core set of studies. You're not done. In fact, the real critical thinking is just getting started. Just because something's published doesn't mean it's flawless. This is where you put on your detective hat.
You have to ask the tough questions. Was the methodology sound? Can I trust these results? What are the study's limitations? You're not just taking findings at face value, you are actively interrogating them.
Now that is a lot of information to try and hold in your head. So how do you manage it all? Let me introduce you to your new best friend, the synthesis matrix. It's basically a fancy spreadsheet where for each paper, you pull out key info, the methods, the findings, your own critique. This not only keeps you organized, but it makes it so much easier to see the connections, the contradictions, and the patterns when it's finally time to synthesize. And with all your data beautifully organized in that matrix, you are ready for the final, and honestly, the most creative step. This is where the magic happens. Synthesis is where you stop being a collector of facts and you become a creator of knowledge. You're not just reporting what you found, you are weaving these individual studies together into a brand new story, identifying themes, and explaining what it all means when you put it together.
Okay, so you've done the deep dive research, you've synthesized your findings, now it's time to actually build the paper. Having a clear structure is absolutely the key to presenting your work in a way that's powerful and easy to follow.
And you've got a few great options here. You could organize it chronologically, to show how an idea evolved over time, or maybe methodologically, by grouping similar studies together. But honestly, most of the time, a thematic structure is going to be your most powerful bet. This lets you build your argument around the key ideas and debates that you discovered during your synthesis. We're in the home stretch now, so let's do one final inspection and go over some of the most common traps that people fall into so you can just sidestep them completely. This is, without a doubt, the #1 mistake. It's that laundry list we talked about earlier, a paper that just describes one study after another without ever connecting them.
And the fix is simple to understand, but so crucial to do. Your job is to create a new whole from all the little parts. Show how different studies agree or disagree. Show how one builds on another, and tell us what it all means for the field when you look at it together.
The second big pitfall is just jumping into the writing without any kind of plan. This just leads to a review that feels random, and it's really confusing for your reader to follow along.
And the solution? It's so simple. Plan your structure before you write a single sentence. Whether you pick thematic, chronological, or something else, having that outline will be your guide, making sure your argument flows logically from one point to the next.
So, to wrap it all up, let's just remember the big picture here. It all comes down to this. Start with a sharp question, have a plan for searching and screening, be a critical detective, not just a passive collector, and most importantly, synthesize what you find into a new, coherent story that actually pushes the conversation forward. And that, right there, is your path from chaos to clarity.
Because in the end, a truly great literature review does more than just tell us what's already known. It shines a bright light on what isn't known. It finds the gaps, it finds the controversies, and it finds the unanswered questions. So the real question I'll leave you with is this: what new territory is your research going to explore?